Hello and welcome to the second session, well, really the first session of Launching Innovation. I'm Andy Tilstra.
And I'm Karen Tilstra, and we're from Creativity Effect, where we are passionate about helping people learn new tools, mindsets, and skills to help them be a better problem solver, innovative leader, and just all around contributor to a culture of innovation.
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for joining us on this Innovation A series, how you can orchestrate and help facilitate innovation to be an exceptional and truly impactful outcome. Well, with that, let's just jump right into the material today. So again, we are jumping into our first session of launching innovation.
Mhm.
So this is what you would do when you have a project coming in or the preliminary work before you get those wheels off the ground and start soaring. So Karen, what can we expect in today's session and in the next week as well?
Well, today what we're going to focus on are three powerful pre-questions. I like to call them the pre-questions to launching innovation and or problems, solving a challenge or embracing an opportunity. So the three questions we're going to be focusing on are, is my project, what's my pressing need, and is my project aligned to the organization? The second one is my project worthy? And the third one is, what is the significant constraint that I have around this project? And you might think, oh, wow, those are just no-brainers. Everybody would know that. Wrong. People don't know it. I've seen many people start innovation projects. They've never asked these questions, and it doesn't go well. So we wanted to start out with these three questions, and we'll follow up next week with some models and things like that. So that's what we're going to do today, and hopefully people will leave with a good understanding of how to ask those questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't say it much better than that. So we're going to be giving you preliminary questions to think about before you start an innovation project or journey. And when we say innovation project, we mean anything that you'd bring a group to or someone else, including yourself, to solve a complex and human-centered problem. Be that how do you get better coffee or how do you create a new brand strategy. So all of those could be considered innovation projects. So I just wanted to...
We're embracing opportunities that come your way. And we know problems can be opportunities. So it's all the way you look at it.
Absolutely. So with the first questions, the need and alignment of a project. How do you understand how a project is aligned with an organization's strategy and the need that organization has for that project? How do we understand that when we start deciding about innovation projects, Karen?
So first of all, the first thing you do when you're really trying to solve something is really identify what your problem is. And you might say, oh yeah, we do that. Everyone does that. They don't. We oftentimes jump to conclusions that we think we need a solution for whatever we're facing, but we need to take some time and really identify what our real need is. What's the pressing need we're trying to solve? And oftentimes that takes some really big questions. What's really going on here? And then we couple that with what are the goals and aspirations of the organization? And again, you might say, people know that. Well, I think they do know it, but sometimes when it comes to problem solving or opportunity seeking, it's very easy to forget because we get really excited. Like, oh yeah, we want to do that. So take a moment. Does my pressing need align with the organization's goals and aspirations? And if you don't know, you can find a leader or someone who will be glad to, believe me, they'll be glad to let you in on that. So just take a few minutes just to figure that out before you really move forward with innovation or actually any problem solving. Just take a moment to answer those questions. What's my pressing need? And does this align with the organization's goals and aspirations?
Absolutely. Well said. This part is exceptionally important to just understand what value is this creating or bringing to the organization or my group.
Right.
It's sometimes easy to get lost in the problem solving weeds where it's almost like an assignment. It's like, oh, I was asked to do, so I just have to. Or sometimes just going through the motions is what people like see as benefit in itself. But really, a true innovation and true innovation projects serve the greater purpose of the organization or the group and team as a whole.
And I'm thinking of a physician, great physician, fantastic physician, who had this really good idea for a device, and he wanted to innovate it. And he actually had done a really good job of identifying his need, but it had nothing to do with the hospital that he worked with. Nothing. It wasn't even in their area they served. And he kept trying to get it going. And he just kept running into all kinds of problems or roadblocks. And the thing I felt bad about is he lost a lot of credibility. And so you really want to answer the question, does this problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity you're trying to explore align with your organization's goals and aspirations? You can't ask that enough, and you got to be really clear on it.
Absolutely. And if you're ever confused, there's a very simple Venn diagram that's actually created by the Kelly brothers. So Dave and Tom Kelly in their book, Creative Confidence, which we highly recommend. Very
Yeah,
easy read, very informative, great
it's a
book.
fun read.
We use it when we meet with our clients. We train them with that. So this Venn diagram is very simple. It has three circles: business, which is how viable is the project or opportunity; technical, how feasible is the opportunity; and then people, how desirable is it. Now these three circles, when they interline or align in the middle, that's called the sweet spot of innovation. You can see it with the little green asterisk. That is where you want to be with innovation. You want it to be viable, feasible, and desirable. And then that's how you know it. That's a good project that's got a
Yeah.
lot of value for your organization.
And this Venn diagram is helpful at the onset in the pre sessions, you might say, but just to help you get some clarification, but also once you go through an innovation and get some solutions and ideas, what you might want to use to solve your problem, run it through this Venn diagram, and it'll be very helpful. You'll save yourself some time and money too.
Absolutely.
It's a good thing.
So moving on to the next umbrella question, is my project worthy? This is a little bit more specific than just what's the goal or what's the need. This one is, why am I choosing this project over other projects? Why is my company or organization allocating funds or resources to this project over these projects? So how do we answer that question, Karen?
So we have some questions in the question, but kind of ethereal, a question and a question and a question, always questions. Actually, we should ask more questions, always ask more questions. So first off, is this challenge or opportunity just focused in your department or area, or is it the whole organization that might be facing this? You'll be surprised by that answer. Don't assume you know, because it's easy to think, oh, this just us. And then you learn that others are facing the same thing. And that leads to the second question.
Has someone already solved this? We've been on a few projects where they get to the prototyping and the testing phase, and
Yeah.
someone comes back and is like, "Oh my gosh, guys! Like they actually have this exact solution or something very similar in another organization or another part of the country." It's happened a lot, and honestly, there's nothing really new under the sun. We're just remixing things together. So ask yourself that question: has someone already solved this? So could I maybe use what they've learned to get a jump start and go and find something on the next iteration?
What's really good about that is I think about actually of someone came in to help us. They asked us to help them solve a problem. It was a teacher, and were having a significant bullying problem in their school, and we encouraged them to go learn what other people were doing. And her answer was, "Well, I don't think anyone has it as bad as us." Well, turns out they did even worse, and they had some awesome solutions that she was able to use and take and apply. They did some tweaking, but it was really great how she was able to save a lot of time, made some friends too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that leads to the next question. What are the potential benefits of running this project? Karen, do you want to take this one and the next one?
Right. So what are the potential benefits and negatives of running the project or not running the project? This is kind of the long view, and you can't always answer all these things right off the bat, but it's worth thinking about. What if I don't run this project? What could be the negative sides? Are there any positive sides? What if we do run the project? What could be the possible positives that come out of it? And again, what are some negatives? And there'll always be benefits and negatives. Negatives are not always bad things, but innovation has a long tail. And when you start innovating here, it does affect over there. So it's just good to ask that question and kind of get the big view of what this challenge or opportunity could impact. Mm-hmm. It's fun thinking about too, because there's a lot that can happen.
Absolutely. And then that leads again to the next question. Are we innovating for innovation's sake? Is this merely to just put on a performance of innovation to show how cool or problem solving we are, when in actuality, it's not solving a problem that has any need or value? So that's a hard question you may have to ask yourself. So you may have to readjust or reframe what you're doing to have true value to the company or the organization.
Yeah. Innovation theater, it can be called. It's fun. And a lot of people, it's easy to do. And so we want to make sure we ask that question honestly. And the last question, are we over relying on technology? This is so easy to do. Our tendency is to want to solve most of our problems with technology. But remember, all problems have to do with us. We're at the root. Humans are at the root of problems on this earth. And so checking to see if your problem is human centered or that you're focusing on a human centered approach to solving it is really worthwhile, because it's very easy for us to say, oh, let's just get an app. We just need to get some more software thrown at that and we can solve it. And it might solve a part of the problem, but fundamentally, good innovation is all human centered, and it really considers the human heart when we're trying to solve problems or seek opportunities.
Hmm. So this is a fairly large section or a fairly large question, but really, is my project worthy? Is this what needs to happen at this moment? And what's the long tail of this project going to look like? Like once we leave the innovation lab or the collaborative space, what are the next steps and how long are those going to take?
Right. One thing I do want to interject here is sometimes by answering these questions, we start seeing the challenge in a new light. And sometimes we shift like, oh, I guess we really don't need to solve that. It's this over here we need to solve. So think about that. Innovation is all about movement and new insights and discovery. So don't be locked into a problem just as you see it. The more you learn, the more you know.
Absolutely. And that's how do I understand it, how my project is worthy? So moving on to the third and final umbrella question. What are my bold ambitions and significant constraints around this project? What are the realistic barriers and expectations that I'm putting into this project or my boss or my coworkers or my employees through this innovation project?
And this is something that just makes innovation thrive or creativity thrive. Creativity loves constraints. And you check any kind of innovation or any great creative thing that's been developed, and it almost always came to a point there was a big constraint. I don't know if you know much about Mick Jagger. If you don't, that's all right. But he has that little dance he does. Well, he had a significant constraint when they started out. They had no money and they were renting very, very tiny spaces to perform in. And he had this little area that he could just stand in, and he got his moves really put down to that little box, which became his signature moves. We could give you lots of examples of how constraints really drove some really creative things. That little Mario on the Nintendo, he came out of some significant constraints because they only had like 6 pixels to work with, so they had to make him real puffy. And anyway,
That's
you
why
can
he's wearing gloves, right? They couldn't make
yeah,
hands, but they can make him wear gloves.
right. So every innovation challenge or opportunity that you seek to solve or explore will have constraints. Do not let that discourage you. Embrace the constraints with a yes and mindset. So, as you know, we are always talking about yes and the mindset of yes and it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It's just suspend negative judgment and keep in the conversation and keep exploring, because yes and is your pathway to new discoveries.
Absolutely. And then with that yes and mindset, ask propelling questions. What's really going on here? Not what we think, or not what's culturally appropriate, or not what's polite, but what's the true seed, or what's the true heart of what is going on with that project or opportunity.
Right. And then coupled with questions is making precise observations. Observe, what am I not seeing? What is missing? What are they not saying? Where is the elephant in the room? The proverbial elephant in the room. Start asking and seeing these things, and don't be satisfied just to say, well, we can't talk about that or we can't point that out, because innovation always, almost always, lies in a pain point.
Mhm.
The opportunity to innovate is almost always in a pain point or a gap. And where there's pain points and where there's gaps, there's non-transparency. And so the idea is to really address your bold constraints by making things more transparent. Not everyone's comfortable with this, but a true innovator is willing to get along with difficult people and ask difficult questions and notice things that people would rather hide behind a curtain. So yeah, that's the exciting part of innovation, pushing past, pushing onward.
And the final question, or really statement of this section, is to invite others to do the same. Create an open experience, an open space for you and your coworkers or colleagues to enter in at the same level of energy with the yes and mindset, the ability to ask questions in a safe way, and to make precise observations. So these are the parts of bold ambitions and significant constraints. Now, we talked about a yes and mindset, but we want to dive in just a little bit more on that, because that sounds very obvious, very general, but it's a very specific attitude that has to be, that was actually derived from improv. But do you want to give us a little bit more information on that, Karen?
And again, you do not have to agree with what's happening on this. The key on yes and mindsets is to suspend negative judgment and add to what's happening. We cannot emphasize that enough. Add to what's happening. It's very easy to storm out of a room or clam up or stop, participating because someone doesn't agree with you or shot down your idea. Yes and mindsets are the core and at the heart of forward thinking, discovery, moving past traditional time tested traditions and politeness, talking nice. No, not that we want to be rude or have big confrontations, but innovation always is shaking it up.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And a way that you can achieve that is with these open mind qualities. Now, we're getting these from Otto Scharmer's Theory U. So if you want to find out more about them, you can check out that book. Again, highly recommend it. It's a little dense, a little big, but it's got some great leadership.
Okay.
It's huge. So the first one's an open mind, which rejects the voice of judgment so that we can be curious. Second one is an open heart, which rejects the voice of cynicism so we can be compassionate. And the third one's an open will, which rejects the voice of fear so we can be courageous. These are three open qualities that are needed in innovation to achieve new and unknown futures that could be scary or leading to frightening places. But ultimately, it's in a collaborative and it's an inclusive way that benefits all those involved.
Right. Curious, compassionate, and courageous are the things we need, the mindsets and the skill sets we need to actually innovate a future that works for all.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, those are the three questions. And just quick recap to go through them. The first one was, how does my challenge or opportunity align with the greater picture, so the organization or the company at large? Second one is my project worthy? What is the reason for it? Is it more important at this moment than other projects? And the third question is, what are my project's significant constraints and bold ambitions? Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week at the same time as we go into the tools and the explicit and tangible next steps to take when launching an innovation project.
Thank you for joining us. And remember, innovation is not for the weak-hearted. So take these questions, think about them. And we're not just talking about organizations here. Mm-hmm. Anytime you want to innovate something, you're always in the kind of in something. So get to know who you're innovating for and understand your true need and does it align. And you will be on the road to great innovation. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.